These are the nonfiction books that I think everyone should read. When it comes to nonfiction books, people are very split on whether they like them or whether they think that they're really boring or a waste of time. I have gone through phases where I've wanted nothing to do with fiction and then phases where I've wanted nothing to do with nonfiction. Right now, I'm currently in a very balanced state where I read about one nonfiction every month and then the rest of the books that I read throughout the month are fiction. So with that being said, I have read quite a few nonfiction books, and these are the ones that I think are worth your time. The first book is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Now, you guys have probably heard me talk about this book before because I read it last year. This is a book about why your body needs sleep, what happens when you get enough sleep, and then also, unfortunately, the consequences of not getting enough sleep. This book was so fascinating to read. Matthew Walker is a sleep scientist, and he is the world's top sleep scientist right now. He designates all of his time, his entire career, to understanding sleep and what happens when we sleep and what happens to our bodies when we don't sleep. This book changed my perspective on rest, and it changed my perspective on sleep. I think for the most part, in American society, we have really drilled into our brains that it is better for us to stay awake and more beneficial for us to stay awake if it can mean getting more done. And it's not super consequential to our lives if we skip a couple hours of sleep to stay up, or if we have that late coffee, or whatever the case may be. But this book outlines so well and so thoroughly why you need to be taking care of your body with the simple act of trying to get enough rest every night. Now, you have to go into it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because if you go into it and you read about all the ways that not getting enough sleep can negatively affect your health, then it can be a very discouraging book to read. But the point of this book was not to be discouraging, but to try to help people understand the importance of sleep, and then from here on out, help you make wiser choices when it comes to your sleep, so you can have the most healthy and well-balanced life that you possibly can. All of my recommendations are going to be a little bit all over the place as far as what kind of nonfiction they are. The next recommendation I have is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. You may have heard of Chris Voss. He is one of the FBI's top negotiators before he retired and started his own consulting firm. If applied correctly, then this book could be something that really does help your everyday life. And even if you don't want to become a master negotiator and be able to talk your way into or out of any situation that you find yourself in, this is a very good commentary on human nature and just how humans' minds work. It almost is a little bit like a psychology book, but a very practical psychology book where he helps you by saying this is how you can practice this skill. And at the very least, I guarantee that you are going to learn something about yourself and others and how the world works by reading this book and understanding how negotiations work. The next two books kind of are paired together, and so I'm going to talk about them as if they are one book because they're by the same author and they give similar ideas and are written in a very similar style, and that is Love Does and Everybody Always by Bob Goff. If you haven't heard about Bob Goff, he is a lawyer turned author, wrote his original book, Love Does, just talking about the little ways that you can show love to other people without it having to be this big elaborate gesture, just how to love people well in everyday lives. And he writes this in the perspective of stories from his own life. So he's not necessarily giving you, here's 3 steps on how to love people better. It's nothing like that. He's showing you examples from his own life and the life of his family on how he has felt loved by people and what they did to make him feel loved, and how he has made other people feel loved and what he did to make them feel loved. And he has such a fun personality. He's so quirky. I love him so much. I originally read this one on Kindle, which is why you don't see the tabs in it, but this one I read the physical copy of first, and you can see how well loved this book is because basically everything is tabbed. There are multiple tabs on almost every single page. So I highly recommend this book. In fact, let me see if I can find a quote or two for you. These days, when I'm talking to a group of people and find myself talking about the man that I wish I was rather than the person I am right now, I clap my hands to remind myself to to sync up with what I'm saying and what I'm doing. We should all have beautiful ambitions for our lives, who we might become, but we also need to sync up so we're not fooled into believing that we've already arrived at a place in our faith we've only been thinking about going to someday. Here's the deal. When we act like someone that we're not, it's often because we're not happy with who we are. We might think that we need other people's permission or love or approval before we can live our lives and pursue our beautiful ambitions. It is both good and bad. It's good if it causes us to want to pursue Jesus' love and approval more, but it's bad if we miss out on who God uniquely made us to be so that we can be someone else who we think that we should be. God has never looked in your mirror or mine and wished that he saw someone else. Don't fake it, sync it up, go be you. When people mess up, reach out and go to them with all the love and acceptance that Jesus did. When they hit hard, run to them with arms wide open and hug them even harder. God wants us to be with them when they mess up, and he wants us to participate. Find out what the people you love want to do and go be with them in it. Go be with each other. And when you get there, don't just be in proximity, be present. Catch them. Don't try to teach them. That's the difference. We don't need a plan to do these things. We don't need to wait for just the right moment. We just need to show up, grab a parachute when it's time, and jump out of our shoes after people in the way that Jesus jumped out of heaven to be with us. Sometimes we make loving people a lot more complicated than Jesus did. I could just go on and basically just read you this entire book because it's all quotes like that that are challenging and just make you see interacting with other people in a completely different light. And so for that reason, I absolutely love these books. I recommend these books to literally everybody that I meet. If you are interested in nonfiction at all, then I think you need to read these books. Go pick up these books as soon as possible. The next book is going to come as absolutely no surprise to anyone, but it is Praying Like Monks, Living Like Fools by Tyler Staton. You guys have heard me rant about this book over and over and over again, so I will keep it brief. I've said this on multiple occasions, but the way that Tyler Staton words things makes things click in my brain that I would not have pieced together otherwise, or he puts them in a different perspective that makes me understand the concept more than I did before. And as you can see on this one, I have tabbed pretty much every page in this one too. So again, highly recommend this book. This was a 5 or 6 star read for me. I'm rereading it again this year because I actually want to take the time to implement the steps that he talks about in this book. Going into complete left field again with a completely different type of book. It is What Everybody Is Saying by Joe Navarro, I think is how you say his last name. This is also a book written by a former FBI agent, but instead of a master of negotiation, he was a master of body language. And I'm recommending this book for a very similar reason why I recommended the book on negotiation. You may not become a body language expert by reading this book, but you will definitely gain insight into human nature, how you behave, and how other people around you are behaving and reacting to the world around them. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. And again, he makes this book very practical, even showing pictures and examples of what different postures look like so you can recognize them in real life. At the very least, this is an absolutely fascinating read on how your body instinctively reacts to words that are said or to environments that you're in. And for that reason, I highly recommend it. Honestly, it was fascinating learning about how we react and what it means, because we don't even notice that we are reacting in this way, or that we're able to be read in this way, or other people are going to be able to be read in this way in your life. So if you're in a job or a situation in life where you have to interact with a lot of people every day and you need to kind of like know what's going on in their brain, whether it's like a business negotiation or you're a teacher or whatever, this is a great skill set to have just like a foundational knowledge of, so you can catch minute details. Even if you only memorize like 1 or 2 different body language postures and what they mean, this will probably impact your life greatly just from those 1 or 2 postures and being able to read people in that way. So for that reason, I recommend this one as well. The next book that I recommend that everybody read is The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. I'm sure that most people have heard of this book by now. It has definitely been making its rounds on the internet. This is obviously a finance book, but it's not just a here's how to invest, here's what it means to invest. This is how does money and your brain work, and why do some people think about money in some way or react to money in some way and other people react in a completely different way. It's exactly what it sounds like, The Psychology of Money. I gave this one a 4.25 stars, I believe. I learned so much about myself and other people around me and why we think about money the way we do. And it definitely helped me have patience with the people around me, as we all see money in very different ways. But it also gives you practical steps of, if you're in this mindset, here's how you can help break yourself out of that mindset in order to have a more free mindset. Next on my ever fluctuating list is Present Over Perfect by Shauna Nyquist. This is a book about how to stop striving to have everything perfect and under control in your life, and to instead enjoy the present moment and what that practically looks like. And this is written in a very similar way to the way Bob Goff wrote his books, where it's stories from her own life and the lessons that she learned through the things that she has gone through. And again, I'll give you a quote so you can kind of get the feel and the vibe of the book. Brave doesn't always involve grand gestures. Sometimes brave looks more like staying when you want to leave, or telling the truth when all you want to do is change the subject. Brave is walking away from the strike while the iron's hot mentality that pervades our culture. Brave is being intentional about taking your marriage from fine to can't live without you, because fine is not fine at all. Fine is like a mesh sieve, enough space for all the important things to slip through, and all you're left with is to-do lists and resentment. It's easier to be impressive to strangers than it is to be constantly kind behind the scenes. Sometimes being brave is being quiet. Being brave is getting off of the drug of performance. Sometimes being brave looks boring, and that's totally, absolutely okay. This is a book that I recommend to pretty much everyone who asks me for a nonfiction book recommendation, or to anyone who is really striving with comparison or the mentality that they have to have their life all together. This is my default book for them, because I think on some level, all of us struggle with comparison and what it looks like to navigate in a world where everyone's highlights are very showy and on display, either on social media or just through elaborate stories. I thought that this was a life-changing book when it came to my perspective on how to have a mentality that wasn't absolutely draining me in order to have the life that I felt like I really should have, and instead of just enjoying the life that was right in front of me while still having dreams and ambitions. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, I know that this is self-help at its absolute core. Everyone recommends this book. Everyone loves this book. There's a reason why this is the most recommended self-help or nonfiction book of all time. And that is because this is actually one of the most helpful nonfiction books that's ever been written. This is a book that is exactly what it sounds like. It is about changing your habits on the very small, granular, atomic, if you will, level in order to change your life in very small ways. And not only that, but it's actually the most practical and helpful habit book that is on the market right now. It has illustrations and chapter summaries to help you get the picture in full, and also give you practical tips on how to apply it to your life. It gives you tables and diagrams so that you can see a summarized version of what the chapter talked about, and you can actually practically use these tables in order to change your habits and to make sure that you're applying all the rules that he talks about in a way that they benefit you the most. And he also talks a lot, again, about human nature and how humans function, and how we can use that knowledge in order to make our lives easier by creating habits that work for us, starting in the small ways and working to really big ways. Even if you only apply one or two of the rules, then it's definitely bound to impact your life for the better. Last but certainly not least is the book that definitely crosses the most genre lines, and that is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull. If you don't know who Ed Catmull is, he is one of the founding members of Pixar, hence the picture of Buzz Lightyear on the cover. This was one of the most fascinating reads that I have ever read in my entire life. Now, I said that it is genre bending because this is sort of a memoir. Ed talks a little bit about his life in the beginning and also throughout it. It is also the origin stories of Pixar from its original conception all the way through whenever Ed retired, and all the stories along the way. So that was absolutely fascinating in my opinion. And then on top of that, this is actually a book on leadership, specifically for when you're having to manage people who are creative or having to go through a creative process, and some of his viewpoints on managing people, but specifically people who are creative, and also his viewpoint on what it looks like to fail and what it means to fail and how beneficial it is to fail was so eye-opening and honestly refreshing and inspiring to read about. I listened to this on audiobook, and I was absolutely enthralled with it the entire time. Reading this book will make you want to go and start the thing that you are afraid to start, because he makes failing sound so appealing and so beneficial. And that sounds weird to say, but he lays out in detail what they learned through their failures and why they would never be as good as they are as a company if they hadn't failed miserably in many, many ways. He gives lots of pointers along the way, and again, he tries to make it as practical as possible without it being such rigid rules. Again, this is one of the books that I recommend to absolutely everyone, whether they like Pixar or not, whether they manage people or not. I think that everyone should read this book, if for nothing else, for his viewpoint on what it looks like to fail and how beneficial it is. And that is all the nonfiction books that I think everyone should read. I hope that you enjoyed this video. What are some of the nonfiction books that you think everyone should read? Comment down below and share some of your favorites with the world. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.